Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday morning here. This is Zan from the Tucanxan art channel. Welcome back to my channel. So we're finally doing it. We're finally finishing up day 30 of my 30-day challenge. It has been it's been a long ride. This last video has just been, it's been kind of fighting me pretty hard. I'll go more into that a little bit later, but real quick, if you follow me on Instagram, which is just Tucanxan, you'll have seen that I bought a bunch of art supplies from this cool store that we have here called Swain's. And so they had this great buy one get one free sale, so I picked up a couple more of the Dr. P.H. Martins to see what I could do with that, and I knew I wanted, as I said in my head, I wanted this mermaid to be the most magical mermaid ever. I don't think it ended up translating quite the way I was hoping, but I do think it ended up looking cool. So these are just the pigmented watercolors, and they're so good for like keeping the saturation, because sometimes when you use watercolor, the pigment will go down super nice and vibrant, but it won't stay vibrant after it dries. So the beauty of these things are they stay absolutely as vibrant as you put them down. They may lighten up a little bit, but they're really strong pigmented colors, which is the point, which is why like you only need a little bit really to do what you need to in any piece. And this is actually a larger piece. So yeah, so this is day 30. We're here, we finally made it. So I guess I can go into a little bit about some of the interesting things that I encountered over the course of this last video. So initially I was drawing something else. I don't know if you remember in the last video I mentioned that I was working on this like cool flower goddess girl, and I had a black panel that my partner had gotten from me for me. And it was, you know, just painted all in black, I guess with house paint or acrylic paint, I'm not really sure. And so I used my coal erase to line the pencil work, and then I was like, ooh, I'd really like to see how this black would behave with my gouache, because I feel like it would pop a lot. And it didn't even work. I don't know if it's just because I was too timid, but the black was like streaking through the color. So anyway, like right now what I'm doing is I'm just testing out these colors to see how they're gonna look, so you guys can like get an accurate depiction of what you can expect if you decide to buy these. You know, it is $8 for a little tube, but if you can buy one get one, that's like even better. I don't even know if I said that sentence correctly. Anyway, so I tried to paint with the gouache first, and that didn't work, so I had to just completely wipe it up and then redo the pencils, and then I started trying to use acrylic, and believe it or not, the acrylic paint didn't work either. And you know, I have Daler & Rowney's CMYK stuff, so that was really annoying. It took me about an hour to draw this. I did actually use reference, and I would love to show you all sometime what my reference picture was. But mostly the reference was for the face, for one of the hands, and for the fins on her tail. Also, this mermaid is very much inspired by another mermaid that I saw online, so I just would like to eventually share with you guys. Maybe I can like include a picture in my description. I don't know if that's possible or not, but I'll try. So I had to completely start over, and I started working on this like 4 or 5 days ago, and I have been working on it just about every day. Also, if you follow me on Instagram, you will have known that with my anxiety, I was taking Remeron and Wellbutrin. And so basically what happened is I was seeing the psychiatrist who initially prescribed me the medications, and for some reason this was the second time it happened, whereas the first time it happened with the Remeron, he didn't like measure out my prescription, so it ran out before I met him, and I only see my psychologist like once a month, if that. And so I ran out of my Remeron, and I didn't have it for 2 days before our next meeting. And let me tell you, just like off the bat, the Remeron, you immediately know the second it's not in your body anymore, because your body just goes through like a very violent reaction. And So I got back on the Remeron, and then he was like, I said that I didn't think it was helping and I didn't want to keep taking it, and he was like, well, you have to look at it this way, because if you think about it, your panic attacks are down. And like, my panic attacks are down, that's true, but it's not, I don't think it's because of the Remeron. I think it's because the things that trigger my attacks aren't happening as frequently. And I can go more into detail about that if you're curious. You can just message me, but I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it here. So just real quick, we're laying down the basic colors for this piece, and I'm using a combination of, I can't believe I didn't bring them up on the desk with me. You might hear some noises right now because I'm gathering my colored pencils. I don't even know if you heard that because I'm speaking away from the mic, but we'll see when this is all done recording. But I used the purpley Dr. P.H. Martin, and I used the Norway blue, which is a staple of mine. I used the jungle green, and to get the gold in the leaves, I used the lemon yellow combined with, like, I think a yellow ochre in my palette. So this piece was, it was very, very frustrating. Like, it took a very long time, and again, I was having a lot of issues with the paper buckling and warping and causing pooling in weird areas and causing, like I was losing my flat washes because of how the paper was behaving. So I still don't really know what to do to kind of handle that. I really hope I figure something out soon, because I love watercolor, but it is so annoying to have to go back in and fix all of the mistakes that basically the paper is making. And it's not crappy paper either. It's Strathmore cold press 300 GSM watercolor paper. So I don't really know what's going on there. But back to the med thing. So he refused to take me off of the Remeron and instead put me on a combination of Wellbutrin and Remeron. And the Wellbutrin, I wasn't even able to have it in my system for a full month. Not that it's bad, I really didn't notice if it helped or not, so it happened again where we had an appointment scheduled for like a month out, and since I was trying a new medication, we were going to meet sooner than just, like, you know, once every 6 weeks or whatever. And he forgot to re-up my prescription. I messaged him a couple days before I ran out. I was like, hey, I'm about to run on my prescription. Do you have anything, like, ordered? Is it already at the pharmacy? And he messaged me back. He's like, yeah, it should be ready to go. And then I called the pharmacy because you know, 2 days later I ran out of my meds, and there was nothing at the pharmacy. And I had another 4 or 5 days before I could even physically see my psychiatrist. And so that, you know, basically what happens is when you run out of your medication, like, it's, first of all, it's super dangerous because it forces your body to go through withdrawal, because your body goes through the shock, which is why the medication says to immediately take your dose as soon as you remember if you've forgotten. So, you know, it's not, as a medical provider, you have to make sure that the psych medications of your patients are ready and available as soon as they run out, because as it is, it would have been like, they said that they weren't expecting to get an order in for the prescription until Thursday, and our appointment was on Tuesday, so it would have been another 2 days. So it was like 6 days that I didn't have the Wellbutrin in my system, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to take it as a sign. This is the second time it's happened. I'm just going to wean myself off of it. So let me tell you, just real quick, for those of you who have anxiety out there, because I know now that some of the people who watch me do suffer from anxiety, Remeron is, like, very powerful, and I would honestly say to stay away from it. It's one of those drugs that can make you gain weight very easily, but it's very powerful. It didn't help me with my general daily stress levels, which is why I was like, why am I doing this? This isn't helping me. So also, real quick, just on the actual process side of this, we're doing mostly a wet on wet thing here. There are a couple areas where you're going to see I'll do a little bit of wet on dry, but pretty much this entire piece was wet on wet. And like, the colors super vibrant. They came out very pretty, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I don't like about this piece in a bit. the withdrawal effects of Remeron are very, very real, and they're very, very difficult. And so these last couple weeks that I've been trying to get this video up, I've been dealing with the withdrawal from the Remeron. Remeron is for people who have anxiety. It's for people who have very intense insomnia, because it helps you sleep, which I was having a problem with at the early part of this year. I just like stopped sleeping, and I was having nightmares when I did sleep, like every time I slept. So I was pretty desperate, and normally I wouldn't even consider doing like an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety medication, but I was so desperate for help because I was just like, I was losing it. And you know, you live and you learn. I definitely don't think, I think that this experience ruined potentially taking medication for me, because I found that for me, using marijuana medicinally, just it works better, and it has helped so much with the withdrawal effects. But basically the withdrawal from Remeron includes nausea, vomiting sometimes. Thank God I haven't had that yet, but the nausea has definitely been a real thing. Like yesterday, I was nauseous all day, like all day. And you can get nightmares, you can stop sleeping, you can, the weirdest side effect from the Remeron is itchy skin. Like, I thought, I did a little bit of research on it so I would know what to expect, and I was like, oh, this shouldn't affect me very much because I've only been on the medication for like 5 months or so, 5 or 6 months, and it totally did. Like, I've gotten pretty much every side effect that was mentioned as withdrawal from the Remeron. That's even when I was like weaning myself off. So now I've just totally stopped taking it, and I do feel better, generally speaking. Like, my head feels clear. I feel like I'm able to kind of understand a little bit better now why I'm getting upset when I do. And a lot of that has to do with my wonderful, wonderful therapist, not my psychiatrist. So I'm going to keep doing what works for me. I'm ordering a supplement in that doesn't have any THC in it so that I can relax. Thank you, Miss Tori, for helping me figure that out. You're super important to me, and I hope you're doing well. And if you watch this, hi, and hello, baby. So anyway, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about the coloring aspect of this. So honestly, most of the coloring in this was done using a couple of colors from my Winsor and Newton palette, which included yellow, the orange red, the yellow ochre, I think maybe raw umber, and the white, and that's pretty much all that I used from my small Winsor and Newton palette. Otherwise, what I used was excuse me, I burped. I'm mostly using these Dr. P.H. Martin watercolors, which, I mean, as you can tell, they kind of water down really nice. But most of the skin, I think, was the Winsor and Newton combination of colors with, I think, the Payne's Gray from the Grumbacher palette, because I really wanted her to be a very fair mermaid, like from head to toe. I just wanted her to be very almost like silk-esque and mystical, which I totally ruined that vibe. And you can see here there were a lot of issues with the water just misbehaving, and there were like streaking and hard lines, and it was a very, very difficult piece. And I think next time I'm just going to use liquid frisket, honestly, so that I don't deal with the same problem, because the liquid frisket takes forever to dry, and if you only have pencils down, it pulls up a lot of your pencils, but whatever. An interesting thing that I learned, though, I think that's really important for you all out there if you're wanting to play with these concentrated watercolors, and if you want to play with these Finetec metallic palettes, something really important to know about the P.H. Martin concentrated watercolors is that you can use a wet-on-wet technique and push the color around, and it will dry. But for some reason it does not have the same staying power that the Winsor and Newton or the Grumbacher does. So whereas you can go over the Winsor and Newton or Grumbacher palette with water to do another wash, and it won't pull up that much of the color, with the Dr. P.H. Martin, the second you touch it with water, it will reactivate, like completely 100%. So that was something that I was also dealing with throughout this project. I don't know if there's something that can be done about that. I just wanted to tell you so that you guys know, like, oh, let me do a bunch of washes with the Dr. P.H. Martins. Well, you're in for a bumpy ride, potentially. I guess maybe it has to do with the paper. I'm not really sure. Whatever. But one thing I realize is, you know, Finetec are selling now these really vibrant reds and blues and greens and purples with their metallic formula, and basically what's happening in these pigments is they're including mica. So honestly, if you end up walking around and you see a shiny stone and it's powdery and it got sparkles in it, all you would in theory have to do is rub the mica off and mix it with your colors. That's a little bit beside the point. So what I ended up doing here, because I knew I wanted the silver and the moon gold, which is the majority of the metallic colors I used for this piece, I wanted those to have a pigment to it, and I found that if you mix the Dr. P.H. Martin color with the Finetec, that you can get any color that you want, basically. And for me, I knew I wanted it to be very subtle, so that's why you can see that there's a little bit of aqua in there, there's a little bit of purple, there's a little bit of pink, but it's not like super strong. And for the base of her tail, I added just like a hint of moon gold, just so that most of her head or tail, not head, tail, I know what's coming right now. I know that my head is going to be in frame, and that's why I said that Freudian slip, guys. Woohoo! So yes, I'm sorry that my head's going to be in the frame a lot. You're going to see my frizzy little curls. So I put a little bit of Finetec into the tail, and I knew I wanted to keep everything really, really subtle. Nothing ended up being super subtle. So next time, but I did end up getting a nice pale skin tone this time, so that's a win. Unfortunately, when I put the Finetec on her hands, it like mittened them out, so they just kind of looked like little paws instead of actual hands, and the hands were so pretty. They were one of the prettiest parts about this piece, and I was really, really disappointed. So I had to go back in and recover a lot of the details with colored pencil, and I used the Prismacolor pencil Premier pencils, and I used the old school, what are they called? I'll have one of them in my hands in a second, but I have them here with me because I've been lazy about sharing with you guys the color pencils that I used. So I used a few colored pencils. To start with, on the tail, I'm pretty sure I used the light peach from the Prismacolor Premier pencil, and I'll include all of these in the description as well. And I used that with the henna colored, which is this kind of muted, really pretty mauve, almost a mauvey pink, and that was what I used for like the base of the tail. But then I kind of went over that a little bit. Eventually I went over everything with this dark purple, and this dark purple was the Stanford Prismacolor, so that's the old 72 set. So I used a combination of the Premier and the Stanford, and I also used a couple of the Premiers from the Skin Tone palette. For the leaves, I used Goldenrod, Golden Finger. I don't know how that actually goes, but I finally did see Gold Member. That's what it is. Whoopsie. So I also used sepia, I used an aquamarine blue, I used a warm gray. I did not use this color, so I don't know why it's up here. I used a light umber, that was mostly in the leaves. I don't know if you heard that, but my dear Mango is trying to come up on the computer with me. Please don't. Don't. Okay. I used a lilac. Come on, Mango, work with me here. I used a black, and I used white, and I used French gray, and I think that's it. Those are the Prismacolor pencils that I used. And then again, for the scales, actually, I didn't mix colors at all. I just used the moon gold and the silver. Because as you can see, where the light is coming from, it would create reflection off of her magical glowing scales. So I put in some details where I thought the highlights might be, And yeah, I gave her some scales and I worked on her hair. The first time, it was so frustrating, guys. Like, I don't know what's been going on with this whole process, but it's just been like one thing after another. But this is the last video, so I'm honestly probably going to take a break for a while, because this video alone made me have to buy, sorry, my cat's trying to jump on my desk, made me have to buy an entirely new external hard drive. I'm just like, really? Come on. Do I really? Like, so anyway, when I put the color down originally, it was too hot pink, and I really wanted like an orange base red because of the green blue that was in the background. I mean, I'm not super familiar with color theory, so a couple things that I personally think I could have done better in this piece. First of all, my partner said that the sea kelp doesn't read as sea kelp. I think he's absolutely right, but it's a pretty golden color, and that was particularly inspired by Hellboy 2. I don't know why, but just like that, the princess and that royal culture. We're actually coming to the end of the video here. That really has influenced me, and we have these new like blackout curtains that we bought, and when the sun goes through them, they're like initially like a jade green, but they end up being this really beautiful golden warm yellow, and that color is just like in my head all the time now. So if you haven't seen Hellboy 2, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about as soon as you see it. There's this like incredible like gold warm feeling that happens when you look at the royal princess and all that fun stuff. So the hair was a combination of Tangerine. I used the rose gold mica to give her some oomph in her hair. I really wish that I'd gone with a more sleek look, because it kind of looks like she has an afro now, like a magical glowing electric afro, which is not what I was going for, but that's okay. I think it's cool, it's abstract, and I'm into it. But I think next time, another thing that I really need to work on is my values, because it just feels like to me that everything is kind of on the same playing field here. And there's not enough contrast in the actual colors themselves, so it's just like this whole thing, this thing was fighting me so hard. Like, I almost couldn't edit yesterday because this thing was rendering every 5 minutes, because I had 4 hours of footage going into this piece, and so like it's kind of disappointing that I'm not 100% happy with it, but I do think it turned out really cool. You know, it's different and I'm into it, and it does look magical, and when it's shining it looks really cool. And so thank you all so much for being with me during this process. For those of you who have watched and who have stayed subscribed, I love you so much. Please visit my website, because all of these are for sale, Tucanxan.com, and I need to get the next batch of paintings that I did up on my site. I'm going to be applying to conventions in the Los Angeles area and maybe in Florida, so if you know me and you want to come visit me, that'd be cool. I'll have more details about that later. I know I still need to do a giveaway. That I'm going on vacation next week, so I'll worry about that when I get back. So I think I might take my site down for that week in case there's orders or something. So yeah, this is the way it turned out. This is like the beautiful shine and like the little details in her fins. I'm really happy with that. I think her tail is gorgeous. I just wish that I hadn't gone with such a vibrant headpiece, which is her hair. But again, thank you so freaking much for being with me throughout this process. I did it. We're finally here, and I can't wait to start cutting back to like a couple days a week. So if you guys have any suggestions for what you want me to do next, I'd be more than happy to share pretty much anything with you all. And have a great Saturday. You know, take care of yourselves, be happy, give your mom and dad a kiss if you're on good terms with them. Tell people you love them, do nice things for other people, all that great stuff. And you're awesome. Subscribe, like, hit the follow button, because you know you want to see my stuff, and have a great day. Thank you.